Indeed, Charlie didn't look like a wealthy family. He wore the most common white t-shirt, jeans, and a pair of sneakers, just like a young working man. As for Steven's outfit, it seems ordinary, but anyone who knows how to do it knows that this set of clothes is expensive and completely handmade, and it costs at least 6 figures from head to toe. Charlie looked at Steven with a smug look and felt that this man was F*** king funny, but in fact, he was not a wicked person. At best he was a silly young master who was short-sighted. So Charlie looked at him and asked with a smile, "You are rich, aren't you? Look at your bracelet, it looks really good, but it's a fake." Steven was taken aback for a moment, and suddenly roared, "You are talking nonsense, my bracelet can't be fake. If you don't believe me, ask the bosses in the antique shops around you." Charlie shrugged and said something in the words, "If you have money to play antiques, you also have to look at who is playing antiques. If a blind person has to get in the antique circle, he doesn't know how to pretend to understand, in the eyes of others. He is just a fat sheep, nothing more." Steven was full of irritation. Hearing that Charlie was mocking his ignorance, he sternly said, "If my bracelet is genuine, you can kneel down and admit it to me on the spot. How about it?" "Okay." Charlie agreed, with an extremely relaxed attitude, thinking of artificial bloodstone as chicken blood jade. "I can only say that you are really a talent." Steven was ridiculed by him, his face flushed. He turned his head fiercely and said to the crowd watching the whole scene, "Boss Jones and Boss Lee, you two will appraise me to see if this bracelet is true or not." The two people named by him suddenly showed embarrassment and looked at each other. Appraisal of antiques, whether they are true or false, is offensive, and it might offend colleagues. "Steven, we both have limited knowledge, we really can't see it." Steven said angrily, "Don't think I don't know what yours is. You give me a good appraisal, no matter whether it is genuine or not, you will not trouble me. But if you fool around, I will find someone to appraise it afterward. I can't spare you for telling lies." "Don't be angry, Mr. Steven." The two came forward in shock. No one dared to offend Mr. Steven when doing business in Antique Street. Therefore, the two antique shop owners had to bite the bullet and take a look at the jade string. A few minutes later, one of the bosses gave a shuddering dry smile. "Steven, that little brother is right, your bracelets say." Steven sneered coldly. The boss was frightened and said quickly, "Your bracelet is indeed artificial bloodstone, not jade." As soon as his voice fell, Steven's face turned green, bloodshot, and flushed quickly, as if being slapped in public. His throat swallowed fiercely as if to be angry. The two bosses were so frightened that they drew back into the crowd, not daring to appear again. Charlie smiled and said, "Do you believe it now? Buying a bunch of artificial stones for 1.5 million, Mr. Steven is indeed rich. This time I missed you." Steven gritted his teeth and said, "Isn't it just 1.5 million? Do you think I will pay the money? Even if my bracelets are fake, my jade gourd is always real, absolutely genuine." For this jade gourd, Steven is 100% confident. Because he did find an expert to appraise it. This gourd is indeed a good ancient jade, and it is in the Sui dynasty. Charlie snorted coldly, "If you can wear such a big evil thing as a treasure, I'm afraid there will be no second fool like you in the world." "What are you talking about? It's just silly." Steven roared sharply, and the blue veins on his forehead protruded. Charlie said faintly, "You have collected such a fierce thing next to your skin. You are lucky if you haven't died yet." Steven's face was ugly, but with the lessons learned just now, he was not sure whether Charlie's words were true or false. He stared and asked, "Why do you say that? Look at the shape of this jade gourd." Charlie said coldly, "Did you not check when you received the jade? What exactly do jade pieces of this shape do?" Steven yelled with some confidence, "This isn't this Sui emperor's coming-of-age ceremony. The gourd represents auspiciousness, and everyone who deals in jade knows this. I know this better than you, poor guy. You know what a shush, tea." Seeing Steven's hard mouth, Charlie shook his head and sneered disdainfully, "You don't even know the difference between a gourd and a jade plug? The old saying goes, jinn and jade are in the 9 orifices, and the dead are immortal. You should always know the sentence? What kind of golden jade? Dead people. Stephen was confused. Charlie's face was, "You can't teach a child," and he shook his head and said, "I don't know this? Have you always heard of Juchayu? What 9-aperture jade?" Stephen was even more confused, looking at Charlie blankly. Although Stephen likes antiques, he doesn't have the mind to study at all. That is, he buys what others say is good, and then goes out and pretends to be right. Idiot. Charlie sneered. 9-aperture jade is the jade plug used by the dead to plug the 9 apertures. There are 7 orifices in the ears, nose, mouth, and eyes, plus the genital pores and excretory holes. Dead. Stephen opened his mouth wide, his eyes rounded. He glanced at the jade hanging around his neck in disbelief, and the hair on his back suddenly stood up. Is this from a dead person?